All right, hello everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of Comic Book Syndicate. This is your co-host Mike L, and as always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at some Barbie comics. So a little bit of a switch up of our normal status quo.
Yes,
kind of
we're very excited about this. I've never read any of these comics before, and to celebrate, we have a very special guest, Dawn from the Nerdy Book Club and Detroit Comics. Hello, Dawn.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
And so, yeah, we were kind of talking about this before we came on, but so you and I met at the Ferndale's greatest comic book store, Detroit Comics, owned by Brian and Lori Kelly. Why don't we talk about how you kind of got involved with that Nerdy Book Club and how you got interested in comics?
So, a longtime friend of mine, his name is Hans, he was really into comics, and he and I shared a different hobby together, which is collecting art prints. He got me into Mondo like a really long time ago, and I started collecting them, and then he would tell me about the comics he was reading, and I was very intimidated. I expressed this to him. I was like, I would love to read comics, but I don't know where to jump in. Mm-hmm. So he kind of told me about the Sandman series. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. So maybe I'll try it out. Because he's like, oh, you don't have to do superhero comics. There's lots of types of comics. And so the closest comic book shop to my work at the time was the Ferndale Detroit Comics in Ferndale. Right. So I walked in after work, and Brian was working behind the counter. Nobody was in the store. And he's like, hi, can I help you? I was like, hello. I've never read comics before, and I would like to read some. And he did like a little dance like behind the counter. He's like, well, let me help you, Yeah. And then he started by asking me like what kind of movies I liked. And he ended up taking me over to the section where Sandman was, and he recommended that to me and a couple other, comics, indie comics like that. And that's kind of how I started. And then on my way out, there was like a display on the table for the Nerdy Book Club. And he's like, you don't have to, we do comics that you don't have to have like knowledge of beforehand, and you should come. Right. So, and then that's how I started coming.
That's great. That's I met, a lot of very cool people there. It was a great book club. Absolutely. The best ever. But, we're trying to keep the spirit alive a little bit with this, with Comic Book Syndicate and with our other podcasts, Slam and Teen Crusaders. We try to have different guests on all the time, mostly around the Windsor area, but our co-hosts are actually in London and St. Thomas, Ontario. And then sometimes we've had people on from, I don't know, different states, Pennsylvania, I don't even know where, California. So yeah, we're always looking for different people. And I noticed with the chatter about the Barbie movie, I noticed you commenting about it a few times, and that's why I ended up inviting you to come on the show, because I think you're really looking forward to the movie, right?
I am really hyped about this movie. I'm not going to say that I'm like a Barbie expert, but as a kid, I played with Barbie all the time. It was a big part of my childhood. And I think that this film is going to be, I don't think it's going to be what we think it's going to be. I think it's going to be the film of the year, personally. I think a lot of people are in the Oppenheimer boat, but I'm in the Barbie boat. So I'm hyped. I'm ready.
I'm going to try and see both, but to be honest, if I had to pick, I would see Barbie.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's just, it's like, it's a blockbuster. It's based on a toy, but it's so different from what we've seen from Marvel films and Transformers and Star Wars and all this stuff. I'm just ecstatic about it. Josh, what about you? You looking forward to the movie?
Yeah, it seems very interesting. I love the angle that all the marketing seems to be going with it. Right. How it's kind of this like actual Barbie doll in real life, and the sets that they've made for the movie and the costumes and the amount of detail that they've put into recreating like people's kind of like childhood and all of these things from the kind of like Barbie lore. It seems super interesting. So very, very much looking forward to seeing it.
I want to live in Barbie's house so bad. I was telling my boyfriend that the other day. I was like, I would live there in a heartbeat.
They just opened up like a big Airbnb where they like recreated the set that you can actually go and visit. Probably, if I had to guess.
I just saw like the headline. I haven't actually read about it, but I guess there's like a real Barbie house in Malibu.
Yeah.
Here, so I live in San Diego, and Barbie and Oppenheimer are opening the same weekend as Comic-Con. So
right.
I think there's going to be a lot of Barbie cosplay at Comic-Con. So I'm going to both movies, and I'm going to Comic-Con that weekend. So like Thursday I'm going to Comic-Con, and then Friday I'm doing like Oppenheimer first, and then like immediately running into the theater to see Barbie. Like no downtime. I'm like, oh,
nice.
The credits end, and I got to run into Barbie. So it's going to be an intense day.
Well, plus,
yeah.
I'm also a huge fan of Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, and I'm a fan of Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig. Like, I've seen almost all their movies, so I'm really pumped for this. But anyway, here today we're going to talk about some classic Barbie comic books, and I must admit I have never... Okay, like, I mean... I didn't play with the toys, but I also have never read any of the comics. But I do remember when the Marvel comics came out, and it just seemed kind of like a no-brainer. Like, of course they would make a Barbie comic, and they lasted a fairly long time. 63 issues is a long time, you know what I mean? Like, by any standard. So obviously they sold well, but we're actually going to go back farther than that, and we're going to start with reviewing Barbie and Ken #1 from what year
62.
is this? 62. May, July 1962, yeah. And according to I tried to find credits on this, and I can't find full credits, but it does say Vince Colletta, who's a very famous inker, mostly for Marvel and DC, but he was famous for inking Jack Kirby on Thor and some other books. And some people don't like his work, but here it looks pretty standard for the time. Like, it fits in with the 1960s style, but how about this, Josh? We'll go back and forth because there's a bunch of short stories in this one.
Sure, yeah.
And then Don, if you want to jump in at a time, feel free. But first, we're just going to summarize the plots quickly, and then we'll kind of talk about each story.
Right. So yeah, this one kind of starts off interesting. It's like a Barbie fan club. So that's kind of how they're setting up all of these short stories, where there's a meeting and each one of the girls is kind of telling their version of how they first met Barbie, kind of like both through like imagination and presumably the dolls themselves, which is pretty cool. So the first one up, she's talking about how she's going on a flight, and Barbie was there. She was one of the stewardesses, and she's on board, and she, of course, befriends her right away. This is her first flight on her own, and Barbie's there to kind of like help her along the way. She also tells her that Ken is the pilot and brings her into the cockpit, and he kind of shows her around to see what's going on with the controls and whatnot. They're making some jokes, and then a small complication pops up where the compass is broken. So Ken has to now focus and talk to ground control to see which direction that they need to be heading to next. This obviously makes the little girl a little bit nervous, but fortunately for her, Barbie is there to comfort her, and she's able to easily fall asleep. And when she wakes up, the plane has already landed, and everything went really smooth. And we cut back to kind of the real world, and everybody there loves the story, and we cut over to the next one, which is Barbie's ballet.
So let's talk about this one before we go forward. Let's talk about this one really quickly. First, Dawn, let's talk about the art. What did you think about the art in this one?
I mean, I'm not going to lie that I'm not super knowledgeable about like the history of comic book art. I do like this 1960s aesthetic, though. I like that it feels like it kind of feels like something, almost like a newspaper, like comic strip. I like that, even like that I'm looking at the digital image, it still has that like newspaper quality.
Yes.
To it. I mean, there's nothing like super crazy about the art. It's pretty straightforward, but I just I don't know. I like the retro look to it, I guess.
Absolutely.
I have to say.
Well, and the thing is the first time I read it, I kind of thought some of the faces were a little bit sloppy. But now that I'm looking at it again, if you look at the page where the girl is first boarding the plane, those two panels are actually really well done. where you've got like this sort of stanchion in the foreground. She's walking. You see the plane in the background. Then you see her going up the steps. Like, that's a really good little sequence there. So, I mean, clearly, if this is Vince Colletta, he obviously knows what he's doing. There's also a nice panel with that when you're looking down the kind of middle aisle of the airplane there, and you see all the seats there. It's just a nice, some nice perspective on the chairs and some nice spotting of blacks there. So, yeah, it's not quite as polished as DC or Marvel art at the time, but I think it is actually really good. Now, as far as the story, I like the idea of what they were going for. However, I thought it was a little bit weird that not only do we not see, unless I'm remembering this wrong, we don't really see how Ken solves the problem. And it's also unfortunate that it's Ken that saves everybody, not Barbie, right? Don, what'd you think of that?
Well, I think that's kind of in line with like what Barbie was originally intended. So first, Barbie was created as this adult role model for young girls at the time, in order to like instruct them to be like fashion conscious and makeup conscious in order to like get a good husband, right? Because at the time, women really couldn't have bank accounts, at least not in the United States. I don't know about when that happened in Canada. And so your value as a person was like to get a husband. So Barbie is kind of, she's a modern woman for the 60s. She's working as a stewardess here. And which is like, I'm rewatching Mad Men right now. So, this comic like very much fits into that, where she's like a modern girl who's like wants to get the attention of her man, and her man's the hero kind of thing. So I feel like, it's very dated for today, but I understand why this was the angle, right? Because this is what they wanted girls to aspire to. And I do also like that, like the comforting factor. Ken does save the day, but she only kind of talks to Ken for a minute. I think her name is Lucy. And really it's just Barbie who's like, hey, everything is great and we're going to have a good time and don't worry. And so she's really more of the comforting factor in the story. But yeah, it is kind of a bummer. Nowadays that like Ken is the hero. But that changes, Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure it does. Yeah, it is obviously a product of its time. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny. But so Josh, what'd you think of this one?
Yeah, it was all right. There's not really much of a story. It really, this whole book really does kind of feel very commercially, right? So there's not a strong story, but I really do like the idea that to have these little like small stories. They've built a thing in fiction, and then we'll actually kind of see by the end of this that they're kind of blurring the lines between reality and like fiction. So it's it's all right. I think that it's a kind of interesting childlike look into like a kid's imagination. It would maybe be more fun if they kind of like amped up the like imagination part of it and like made something maybe a little bit more fantastical happen, but it was okay. Especially again, it does feel dated, so there's moments where you're like a little strange, but yeah.
All right.
It's also hard to like judge it as a story because it's very much
vignette, right?
Yeah, it's also very much geared towards kids, and it's really to kind of establish and show off that this toy can be anything that you want, right? So there's so many different facets to what this toy could be. So
to be honest, it reminds me of those free giveaway comics you get of like Spider-Man teaches you how to brush your teeth or whatever. You know what I mean? Like just those weird ones you'd find like a cereal box or something. But yeah, I mean, and like you said, it is aimed towards kids, but I appreciate, like, it's so rare, especially for me, to read a comic from this era that's not a superhero book. It's nice to see something different. That's definitely for sure. So yeah, Josh, you want to jump to the next one?
Sure,
You're better at summarizing than I am, so you might as well tell us what happens in the next one.
Sure. So the next one, it's Tina's story this time, and she's walking down the street, and she sees an opera house, and the sign in lights is advertising there's an afternoon ballet with Barbie and Ken. So she talks to the doorman, And she kind of explains that she's a big fan of Barbie, and he eventually kind of allows her in, or he actually goes in himself and gets Barbie. So she shows up and says, hey, I hear you're a big fan. I'm going to give you a tour, behind the scenes tour of what's going on before I have to go on for my first performance of the day. So she's kind of, this one really, there's not much of a story. They kind of just go through and show you all of the different things. So they're showing you like the costume department and the makeup and the sets. They're building the sets, and the play starts in 20 minutes, but you know, they're but it's like kind of going through and just introducing her to all of the different things going into this. They go into like the into a room where they're practicing, so she herself is able to like practice ballet with Barbie. Ken is there. He's part of the play and kind of shows up, and then he leaves to go try and get her a ticket, so she's able to watch the play like really close up. And then by the end, it was an amazing performance, and Tina, Barbie, and Ken have become kind of close through this experience, so they decided to go get sodas together. And before Tina leaves, they thank her for coming out, and that, you know, now that they're friends, they'd love to get together again, and she's welcome to come backstage whenever she wants. So
I love how this story, like how Ken being a ballerina or like being in ballet is described as being very, very manly, which I feel like that wouldn't be described today. That was my favorite part of the story. I was like, yes,
right,
manly ballet.
Well, I appreciate how they kind of emphasize how hard it is to do what they're doing. Like the part where, what's the girl's name again?
Tina?
Yeah, where she's like she puts her leg up, and they're all laughing because she can't get it down and stuff like that. So, I mean, again, it's kind of like seeing the world through the eyes of like a kid. Like she's coming into this world and, you know, just being exposed to it probably for the first time. So I thought that was cool. Also, I think the art was really good on this one, you know, like, I mean, maybe the artists scooped these shots from actual photos or something, but some of the shots are really good. Like when Ken's holding Barbie, like when they're actually doing like the ballet or whatever, it's actually really well done. So I really like that. But yeah, I don't know, this one, yeah, like you said, like it's not like the first one where there was an actual crisis they had to deal with. Here, it was just her watching them and kind of like being excited about how great it was to see them and how great Barbie and Ken were. So again, like not quite the type of story that I'm used to, but I thought it was pretty cool. But otherwise, Don, what did you think of this one?
I mean, I really like that Barbie, she's a celebrity to these girls, but she's not like a celebrity in the way that we know. It's more like she's a really valued community member that makes the girls feel included. Which is really, when you're a little girl and like you see somebody who's older who's doing something, you just like want to be allowed to like be in the space. Like, let me come along with you. Let me, you know, if you're a bus driver, let me spend a day with you on the bus. Let me go to the ballet. You know, let me hang out with you. And that's and Barbie's really good at making her feel like included and centered, which is kind of what little girls, or at least little kids in general, want.
Right. Good
so
point.
that's what I really like, that this isn't, even though there's a lot of, you know, celebrity culture in the 60s, that this comic is really more community focused, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's wholesome.
That's actually a good point. And you know, obviously things were different back then. This is before Instagram influencers, right? And stuff like that. So yeah, completely different mindset back then. But yeah, otherwise, yeah. So anyway, I thought the story was pretty cool. Again, not much happens, but I enjoyed it for what it was, and I thought the art was pretty good. So now we're going to jump to the next one.
Which Josh. Is Janie's story this time.
Yes.
She actually met Barbie at a hospital. She was there visiting her Aunt Sally, who had just had a baby, and she was surprised to learn that Barbie was actually her nurse that helped her deliver the baby. And Nurse Barbie actually kind of takes her for a tour of the this ward that they're in the hospital. They run into Dr. Ken, and they're kind of like going for a tour while checking up on other patients. So there's like a little kid that's sick or hurt his he hurt something like his stomach or something.
His stomach, yeah.
And then they continue to go on tour, go on a tour. And unfortunately, Barbie and Ken have to leave because they're scheduled for a surgery. But fortunately for, oh my goodness, what was her name? Janie.
Yeah, Janie. Yep.
She's able to watch the surgery from the observation deck above, which is pretty crazy for a little girl to be able to do by herself. I don't think I would even be able to do that now. I don't know if my stomach could take that. But thankfully, the surgery goes great. They meet up again, and they go back to check up on Billy, and he's feeling much better now. And yeah, I think she kind of just says bye to Billy, and that's the end of the story.
And
not really.
it, yeah.
Again, they're very short, not like anything too complex happening going.
Right.
So,
but again, yeah, I guess, experiencing something new again, meeting Barbie in a different situation. So I guess Barbie, and I don't know how this works, but Barbie can pretty much do it all, right? Like, they don't really explain how she can have all these different jobs, but it's kind of part of the fun, right?
I saw a TikTok creator say that, Barbie has always been everything and Ken has always just been Ken. Although here he's obviously a doctor, but Barbie's always had a million jobs. And where she has this time to learn all these skills, I don't know, but she's like the jack of all trades.
Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, in this one, Ken is a doctor. And I guess the other one, he was a pilot too. So he's quite busy too. But yeah, I thought this one was fun. I mean, it's probably the most, I don't want to say outlandish because they're all a little bit outlandish, but the fact that Ken's a doctor and she's the nurse is kind of funny. But again, it's 1962, so Barbie's not the doctor, she's the nurse, right? But whatever. Again, we have to accept it for what it is. But I thought this one was pretty good. I'm looking at
those surgery panels are pretty amazing. I think those are in the story.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was looking for the stand-up panels, and those are probably it. Absolutely. Do they do that anymore? Do they have operations like that? I don't think so. Do they?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think so.
It's something you used to see back in movies like The Elephant Man or something, but I don't. Think
or in Seinfeld.
Oh yeah, with
they're the junior mint. That's
mints,
I think about that every time.
Well, even they use this style of room in Captain America: The First Avenger.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah,
and they were all upstairs watching him.
Right. Which is set in the late 30s, 40s? Yeah, 40s, early 40s. Because World War II had already started, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 41 or 42 maybe. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, again, this story is kind of, same as the other ones. I thought it was fine. Dawn, what did you think?
I liked it just because Barbie's like, hey, want to watch a surgery? Want us to watch us slice this kid open? Which I chuckled at. And she's like, yeah, sure. It's not, the last story is my favorite story, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I thought this one was pretty good. I like this more than the other two.
Okay.
Mostly because of the surgery thing, but
yeah, it's definitely the most outlandish. It kind of leans into it being just a story in a kid's head, right? Oh, I was able to walk through the hospital and I watched a surgery, and that kind of schoolyard mentality of one-upping.
Yeah,
you can kind of feel
vibe.
that. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I just saw her on a plane. Oh yeah, well, she took me back to the ballet. Oh yeah, well, I got to watch a surgery.
Right. And then it's even it's kind of brought to an extreme here with Tammy's story, because she tells, I think it's Tammy, right?
I thought her name was Patty, but
maybe it is Patty. You're probably right. Yeah, it is Patty. Yep. So Patty says that she actually saw Barbie and Ken get married. And nobody there believes her. And she's like, well, just listen to my story and I'll tell you what happened. So this is what happens. She's in a clothing store and she actually bumps into Barbie there. And the two of them just get talking after they bump into each other. And Barbie confides in her and kind of tells her this secret that her and Ken are getting married, and she's there shopping for her wedding dress. So the two of them go together to try on ball gowns. Barbie actually invites her to the wedding. And not only that, she actually makes Patty her maid of honor. So she's very excited. She goes home to get her dress. She gets all dolled up, goes to the venue. She meets Ken. And while she's there, she meets a boy named Tommy, who is one of Ken's really good friends, I guess. And she helps Barbie get dressed. She's upset because she forgot her pearls at home, but it's okay because Patty remembered to bring them. So she gives Barbie the pearls. She watches the two of them get married. They say their I do's, and her and Tommy are kind of left at the end watching them drive off in their car. And Tommy asks her out for a pop, for a soda. Mm-hmm. And we cut back to the real world. Everybody's like, we don't buy that. That can't be true. And it's the end of the Barbie fan club meeting, and they're all leaving. And we actually see Patty meet up with a boy who looks very similar to the boy that she described in her story as they walk off. And we're kind of left with some of the girls trying to decide amongst themselves if that was really him and maybe it was a true story, which I think is actually a really great ending for these like collection of stories, because both as like an ending to a story and just like a concept for what the creators were trying to do with this. So if they're trying to advertise to kids that Barbie could be anything you want, we have all of these kind of like fantastical stories, and then at the end, it's revealed that these crazy stories might actually be true and Barbie is really out there, then all of these things that Barbie does, you can actually do. This isn't something that's unrealistic for you to do. So it's kind of setting her up as not only like a role model you would see on TVs or the store shelves, but like somebody that could actually be out there for real. So that's, I think, a really interesting ending for this. I thought it was, good way to end it. Yeah,
I agree. Don, what do you think of this one?
This is definitely my favorite one, just because of what we discussed a minute ago, the one-upping.
Sure.
And like, oh yeah, you're not gonna believe it, I got invited to Barbie's wedding, and I got to be her maid of honor. And they're like, nuh-uh. You know, like they're all kind of mad a little bit about it at the end there. I also was thinking of the previews we saw of the Barbie movie, specifically the one with Ken where he's got the clicky pen, where they might reference this comic, and also this idea that Barbie is real, because that's kind of where this comic is going. And like, oh, well, maybe Barbie is actually real. Because you don't know. I mean, it's led as like their imagination, but also they're like implying that she's a real person.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of this, and I'm wondering if that's gonna, some of this is gonna end up in that film, maybe.
We shall see. And there's only 5 issues of this original run, so maybe it's not like they had 100 issues to pick from, so maybe there is some direct references to these comics. We can only hope, right? That'd be really cool. But okay,
I mean, they're definitely referencing the dolls, so I'm hoping that they do some like deep cuts in there.
Right, it'd be nice.
Even how she's drawn is like very directly, like they're drawing the doll and not trying to make her look like a real person. Like even in the comics themselves, she looks, both her and Ken look a little bit different from everybody else that they're kind of talking to, or even the girls. Like they have this certain kind of specific look and style to them. Not that it's completely different, but like you can tell that they're trying to match that style from like the box art or whatever for the toys.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. I don't know if there was any other Barbie comics in between, but the only ones that are available to us are, the next one that's available to us is Marvel Comics version of Barbie, which we're going to jump to now. And this is from
1991.
1991. So this is during the big boom, like probably one of the biggest years for comic sales. This was the year X-Men #1 was launched. This X-Men Volume 2 #1 by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. So this is when Marvel started exploding in sales. So, you know, they were probably capitalizing on that and trying to find more properties to do. And this is one of the things they did. And as I said earlier, it lasted 63 issues. And we're going to review the very first issue and the very last issue. And before we jump into this, I just want to say that this issue is written by someone, I don't know her, I've never come across her before, but Lisa Trusiani, who I don't know, but penciled by Mary Wilshire, who I know from New Mutants. She actually took over for New Mutants after Bill Sienkiewicz left, so that's what I'm familiar with her art, and I always thought it was really good. So this is a completely different kind of style for Barbie. Josh, do you want to tell us what happens in this one?
Sure.
Right.
There's a bunch of different stories in this one as well. Except this one feels more sitcom-y, I guess. Like we have some regular reoccurring characters who at this point are established characters in the Barbie lore. Like these are all actual dolls that you could get. So like her younger sister, I think, is Kelly. Skipper is also one of her younger sisters. She's got a couple of like friends that are reoccurring that I can't quite remember. I probably should know their names. I know Teresa for sure is one, but I can't remember the other one.
There's Midge.
Midge. And Christy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I should point out, Josh, you have a sister. I did not grow up with a sister, so...
Right, yes.
So I don't know any of these characters. Other than
I also know some of these characters because I'm currently working on the show.
So like casually mention that.
I'm currently working on Barbie, so it's some of the characters I'm a little bit familiar with.
Yes.
But this story is about this first story, The Fashion Show Must Go On, is about Barbie and her friends. They're about to put on a fashion show. They were told that they have to wear these certain outfits, but they're not really too sure of it. And Barbie's kind of convincing them along the way, like, just trust us. This is like the process. We got to wear them. You know, that's kind of what our boss told us to do. So we're going to do it. And we're introduced to a character named Clarence C. Ment. And he's
such a great
name. There's a goon who works for Clarence C. Ment. I can't remember what the goon is called or what's his name, but he's there to ruin Barbie's day for some reason. We don't really know why. So he's like putting glue traps on the floor, and he's releasing spiders and throwing dandelions on the ground instead of roses, I guess, even though this isn't the actual show yet. I'm not sure exactly how this is ruining their day, but it is. But he goes back to, his name is Gardner. So Gardner goes back to see Ment and kind of tells him that, like, don't worry, I ruined their day. So they go to the show, and it looks like they're still going to put on a performance. So it looks like things might not be as ruined as they thought. So to rectify that, they sneak backstage and they decide to mix up all of the clothes. Not sure how that exactly is going to ruin it, because they could just swap back. But they decide to just quickly get dressed in the clothes as they've been swapped. And it turns out that doing that actually fixed their outfits, and they actually look way better than they did before. So Barbie again kind of says this speech to rally the troops, gets them excited to go back out and put on this fashion show, and it's a huge success, and Cement has been foiled once again, I guess, because it sounds like he's been doing this for a while.
I think where they're doing a fashion show as a fundraiser in this garden, and I think he wants to like rip out the garden and build a mall or something. He wants to build some kind of building there.
That's right, yeah.
Well, you know, I like this story because it's, you know, life throws you lemons, you make lemonade. Like I really like that idea. They kind of just work with what they have. This one was obviously much more modern, and so I was able to read it. It was more fluid for me than the other ones, even though I love the aesthetic of the 60s comics, like you said, Don. This one felt a little bit more modern. I do like the art in this one. Again, not quite as classic as the other one, but some of the figures in this are really good. Like, I like Mary Wilshire's faces for the goons especially.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you see that close-up of the one guy with the red hat, and then later on, the last panel of the story, I think those close-ups of their faces are really good, especially...
Yeah, they're fun.
Cement, the guy with the cigar. That's a great shot. I love it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. I thought it was pretty cool. Don, what did you think of it?
I really liked this. I thought that it was very appropriate for the time period. So, in 1991, like we were in the era of like supermodel celebrities. So we have like Cindy Crawford's House of Style. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead came out this year.
Oh, I remember that.
We just came out of the 80s. Yeah, where she becomes like Christina Applegate becomes like a teenage fashion employee or something, and she always let like fashion show on her roof and stuff. We have George Michael's Freedom music video had come out in this period with all the supermodels, and then I wrote it down like in the 80s we have like all the John Hughes films, with Pretty in Pink, and that's like very fashion conscious film, and I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, Dynasty. Dynasty was in the 80s, so this is like early 90s. So we're kind of in this like fashion, the popularity of the supermodel era, and so it made sense to me that Barbie's always been about fashion, but it makes sense that the comic would be about a fashion show because little girls were really into that. That was also everywhere in pop culture. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like this really felt like a time capsule. The panels that I really liked, I really liked the panel where they're like scared of the spider. Is that Midge?
I'm not sure which, and she's got it's got like a little smiley face.
Yeah, it's got a little smiley face. And then I like the way the runway looks, like a couple panels down, where it's like their silhouettes and they're like having the best time.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a lot easier. This is a lot easier to read than the other one, since it was more of like short little girl stories. And this felt, this still for little girls, but there's more of like a cohesive narrative in here. Like a villain, and he has a motive, and the girls like save the day with their willingness to overcome.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely more of a story, right? And less of like kind of just a lesson. Not a lesson, but you know what I mean? Yeah, definitely more of a story here.
Well, speaking of lesson, our next story, Barbie teaches us how to walk.
Yes.
It's so goofy, but it's literally Barbie looking good, feeling great, how to do the Barbie walk. So it's kind of just her, a 1-page story. There's 5 panels. She introduces herself, and then there's 4 square panels right next to each other, and she's kind of just like, put one foot up, put it down, plant it firmly on the ground, and then I switch to the next leg. It's literally kind of her just saying to like walk confidently, I guess. And
I think it's kind of like speed walking, right? Like push your leg out as far as it can go, bend your arms at the elbow. That kind of thing, So
this one's not much of a story, but kind of like just like a little commercial break, almost like kind of like breaking up in between the stories.
Which is cool.
I was gonna say.
Like the old 1930s and 40s comics, they always had those 1-page gags in between the main stories, which I think is really cool, right? Especially for a kid to kind of break it up. Maybe you'd have like a puzzle in there or something.
It feels like a variety kind of thing. Like what would you call that? Like a variety
like a variety show.
Yeah.
Like Ed Sullivan or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very much like from the aerobics obsession of that time. I think the aerobics obsession was like a little bit earlier than this.
Like Olivia Newton-John, yeah.
Yeah, we're in the early 90s, so we're getting the kind of bleeding between the 2 decades, where she's like, hey, look at my leg warmers. Mm-hmm. It's actually like my favorite part, that she's got like leg warmers that match her outfit.
Yeah. I mean, that also kind of rolls into the next little part, which is throw a funny fashions dress-up party. So, again, it's just kind of one page, really just 2 panels. It's almost a splash page. But we kind of see that Barbie and her friends are going through old trunks of clothes and picking out random stuff and throwing it on and kind of making new outfits and playing around and like, you know, being goofy to kind of let those, you know, that creative side of you out and experiment with, you know, trying on new things. So again, it's a cute little kind of a moment in between the stories.
I mean, I used to do this as a kid with my friends. Like, we would go over and there was like a trunk at my friend's house and all of the costumes and like old clothes that her mom had, and we would like dress up and like dance to songs and like do dance routines for each other and then like rate each other and who has like the coolest outfit and dance routine.
That's awesome.
Like, that was very much a thing that I did as a child. So I like love this panel. Like, this is like a realistic thing.
And, you know, the thing is I don't know. I mean, I buy some Marvel and DC comics, but for a very long time, Marvel, especially Marvel, has almost completely forgotten about kids. And I really wish that when you went to a supermarket or a grocery store, they'd have comics like this at the, you know, the checkout. Like, maybe they still have Archie, but I wish they had like Spider-Man and Superman and stuff like Barbie. Why not, right? And have things like this where you have little things in between, again, you know, giving you suggestions of stuff to do and how to walk and, like I said, puzzles or whatever. I think that would be great, but they've kind of just forgotten about that. Like, and I bet you if they did publish something like this for kids, there'd be idiot collectors that would come in and snatch them all up and basically scalp them to collectors, right? And charge 10 times as much money. So it's almost a hopeless cause. But anyway, yeah, I thought this was cool. So let's see, what is the next one here? Barbie in Dirty Dancing.
Right. So this one, they're on a cruise. And we're following Skipper. Is it Skipper? It is Skipper. So we're following Skipper and Barbie on this cruise. They're dancing. They go outside and we see that Courtney has fallen. We kind of established that she's clumsy. She's a good dancer, but she kind of always falls down. She's nervous because there's like this big dance that's happening later on this like cruise ship's dance floor. And they're getting fancy and dressed up and they go there. Courtney is very nervous for the whole thing because she is clumsy and she's kind of sitting off to the side, not really participating. And Barbie convinces Ken to go ask her to go dance. And Ken obviously agrees and says that's a great idea to kind of get her up on the dance floor and lift her spirits. So he walks over there and as she gets up and agrees, she's walking to the dance floor and she slips on some ice from a spilled drink, and she kind of starts swaying back and forth and slipping, and Ken bravely rushes in onto the dance floor to save her, and he also starts slipping around on this drink, and it turns out that the audience is loving this, and while they're kind of flailing around trying to catch their balance, it really does look like they are purposely dancing, and they end up winning a dance competition, which is really fun. And they even have a plaque, I guess, for the winners. And Courtney is happy and cheery again because she was able to kind of participate and win this competition.
Right. So again, kind of like more like a sitcom where there is a story, there is something happening, and I like how she kind of accidentally falls into not winning, but you know what I mean? Well, I guess she does, right? Yeah, so it's kind of cool. I like that.
It's also nice that they establish ahead of time that she's like good at dancing and she really enjoys it, but she's nervous because she's so clumsy, and it ends up being the fact that she is clumsy that wins it for her, like helps her win. So it's not just like she stumbles into winning. it's kind of like both in a sense, right? Like she's good at it and she kind of stumbles in. So it's like the practice, I guess, kind of paid off.
And
still.
Her weakness becomes a strength, kind of, right? So that's cool. Don, what did you think of this one?
I really liked it. I really like that the stories have this sense that like Barbie is just encouraging you to like embrace who you really are, and that your flaws are actually an asset, and like mistakes can actually be turned around into something that benefits you. I really like this the 3 panels where she's slipping on the water, and it like there's a noise effect they use like in cartoons where characters like slip on banana peels. It has I can't just it kind of I hear that in my head when I'm like looking at these. I think the motion is great. I also really love that you can tell that Ken is wearing a sequin shirt or a vest. The way it's drawn, like his outfit is just
attention to detail amazing. There.
I just like there's like a panel where Ken like kind of first shows up and he's like talking to Barbie, and you can kind of see like the little sequins on there. And I'm like, oh man, that's great. That outfit. I bet you in real life it would look really great.
Yeah. So this one was cool too. Good fun. And then we're gonna jump over to Career Quest with Linda the fashion designer. Josh.
Right. I'm trying to remember what this one is. So Linda is trying to come up with a new design for an outfit, and she's got a bunch of like ideas. I'm trying to remember. I don't know why I don't remember this one. I remember the punchline at the end, but
it's only 2 pages long. We should point that out.
Right. I'm sorry. I don't know why I don't remember this one too well. I think she's giving Barbie a tour of this clothing design headquarters. And as they're walking through, they're kind of just like showing Barbie around. She shows that she graduated and she's got her degree in fashion. And she sits down to kind of show her one of the final designs, and she pricks herself on her butt as she kind of sits down, and she thinks that it's a pin cushion, like a pin or something from the outfit that she's put together, but it turns out to just be a pen on her chair. So again, this one is less of a story and kind of just like a little moment.
Right.
Yeah. Unless I'm missing something, but that's kind of what I remember from it.
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
Pretty much it. I like these little cutaways. I think they're fun, like stuff like this. And when you're going to do comics that are intended for girls, there's no reason to make them be like a comic for little boys, right? Like, make it whatever you want to make it. And if it appeals to girls, then good. But so Don, what did you think of this one?
My favorite thing about this is that there's a lot of space in many of the panels that are dedicated to Barbie's hair.
You're right.
Is the whole point of like when you're a kid, like the best thing about Barbie is her hair. You want to comb it, you want to play with it. It's like your favorite part of the doll. So it's almost like they finally realized that, that's why we buy Barbie really is for her hair. And so like, especially, these first few, when Barbie's looking at all the different designs, like her hair takes up like so much of the panel. And so that I think is really great. I also love that, again, Barbie is a sense of encouragement, for people to like embrace the things that they love. And she asks questions, but they're not like hypercritical. She's asking like, well, why are you using the same bodice on these 2 dresses? And Linda explains that the fabrics are different and then they lay different. And Barbie's just like so encouraging, and she's asking like really, it's a kid's, so it has to be at like a kid's level, but she's asking questions that matter to the person. So I think that's good. It's like, it's a very positive message, and it's also, fashion conscious, going with the whole theme of this entire comic.
Right. Yeah.
Go
ahead, Josh.
It's really great too. I think this like kind of tour that she's going on, because this is also reminiscent of how they come up with the designs for the clothes that they're selling for the toys. In one of like the write-ups, or maybe it was like a documentary or something that I'd watched. I remember them talking about how they would send some of the toy designers to Italy to go to Fashion Week or your fashion shows and come up with ideas to come back. And it would take them a year to put those toys and like from prototype to product on the shelves. And by then, in a year, those styles in Italy were then popular in North America. So they were kind of like constantly updating her looks and traveling to different places to figure out like the best clothes and you know, different fashions that were going to be popular in the future. Because again, if they're doing something that's popular now, by the time it comes out, it's, you know, it's over. So this is kind of a fun look at that. Kind of the idea of buying these or even making them at home, these like accessories for your own Barbie, and seeing how it's actually done. And then kids can kind of do that at home themselves. So yeah, pretty cool.
Your story about how the fashion designs for Barbie reminded me of the story of how Mattel actually engaged in some corporate espionage when they released Barbie and the Rockers. Have you guys heard that story?
Yeah.
No. So Barbie and the Rockers was like a band. She's like Gem.
Sure. Okay.
And so Mattel got wind that Gem was being created. I'm actually wearing my Gem shirt today.
Nice. We've reviewed Gem before, but anyway.
And so they wanted to beat Gem to the shelves because Gem dolls were going to be competition with Barbie. So I think it said like a year or a little more than a year it took to create, from concept to shelf for a Barbie doll. And they did it in like 9 months or something so they could beat Gem to the shelf because they got like some insider information.
Really? Now,
which was my first Barbie.
Yeah.
I mean, Barbie and the Rockers was my first Barbie, and like she had everything. She had like a whole band. She had a tour bus, which I got, and it was like the most amazing thing. It was like this huge purple thing. It had like splatter paint all over it, and it was actual like vans, so you could like sit them all in there, and it had like a little stove and like where they could lay down, and it had like little guitars and stuff. And like if you guys ever have the opportunity to look up Barbie and the Rockers Ken, he had real hair. He kind of looked like David Hasselhoff, like combed his hair, and he had this like long silver like trench coat thing. The fashion stuff was so important. Originally, I think you could in the 60s you would buy the doll, and then you would buy the outfits to fit the doll. But then eventually, if you wanted a new outfit, you had to buy that doll.
Make more money that way.
Every doll had. Yeah, so there's like Peaches and Cream Barbie and like Working Day and Night Barbie. And if you wanted those outfits, you had to buy like another $20 doll or whatever.
Of course. So I just have to know, so did Barbie and the Rockers sell better than Gem?
I believe so. And they were released before as well. Like they actually beat them. And most people thought that Gem was a ripoff of this Barbie line.
Interesting. Because I was a big fan of Gem. I watched that cartoon in the 80s. It had the same voices and animation as Transformers G.I. Joe. And I don't know if you know this. Did you watch Gem, Don?
I did. It came on before the X-Men cartoon. So I would make... my brother watch Gem too because he didn't want to miss X-Men. Awesome. So we would watch them together. Yeah.
Did you know that technically Gem is in the same universe as Transformers and G.I. Joe? And in Humanoids. Because it has
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it has a character named Hector Ramirez, who is like the Geraldo Rivera of Hasbro cartoons, and he's in all 4 cartoons.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Somebody needs to do like a whole like lore analysis of those.
Yes, hey, leave it to us, right? Anyway, okay, so we still got, I think, one more story in this issue. Barbie and Prize Pet.
That's right. So this one, Barbie is dog sitting. I believe it's her boss's dog, Sparky, or maybe it's somebody's dog, Sparky. And as all good dog watchers do, she leaves the dog at home to go to the amusement park with Ken. And as they're walking away, Ken's like, I hope he doesn't try to escape. And we see that Sparky immediately escapes. and he actually follows them all the way to the amusement park, and Barbie and Ken are kind of going on this mad goose chase, trying to catch Sparky as he's jumping on the on different rides and roller coasters, and he's running past like a clown and jumping through like different circus or carnival games like the ring toss and whatnot. And she even Barbie, when she kind of bumps into the clown, she actually accidentally wins a prize from this ring toss game, and they are chasing Sparky through the go-karts, and Barbie and Ken jump into a go-kart and start running around, driving around trying to catch Sparky. It all kind of comes to a head when Sparky jumps onto this like scary roller coaster, and the one thing that actually catches Sparky's attention is the prize that they accidentally won at the end. So they were able to grab him and bring him along for their day at the amusement park, and they were able to enjoy the rest of the day together. So yeah, this one is very hijinks. Like, this one feels maybe less like a sitcom and more like a Saturday morning cartoon, kind of how it plays out, which is fun. I think it's
right.
It's kind of like it fits well with the rest of the story still, but it's definitely more goofy and in a very light way to end this book.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, who cannot relate to this, right? So,
right.
I mean, to an extent, but you get my point. Yeah, the premise for sure. And so, yeah, I really like this one. Dawn, what'd you think of it?
This is what it really reminded me of is there's a Barbie from, I can't remember what year she came out. 1988. And there's a matching Ken called Animal Lovin' Barbie and Animal Lovin' Ken, and they're wearing like animal prints, which I don't know if you liked animals, why you would wear animal prints, but like Ken's shorts like remind me of that Ken. I think he's wearing like leopard print in the actual doll. But
yeah, and he's got like the ascot and everything. That's the one that they actually use in Toy Story 3. The Ken that they use in Toy Story 3 is the animal loving Ken. Yeah. Yeah,
and animal loving Barbie even has her hair like in a ponytail like this.
Oh yeah.
Like a high ponytail.
I wouldn't be surprised if like all of the Barbies in these stories were just the one like the ones that they had on the shelves to kind of go along with that.
Inspired by.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like with her hair, you know, these later stories are better with the amount of hair they show in the panels, which is, you know, again, the favorite part. And of course, Sparky. Like, who doesn't love Sparky? He's so adorable. I like that he like gets on a roller coaster. I'm like, my dog would have a heart attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, it also gives, I believe it's still Mary Wilshire on art, a chance to like do something different, right? Because she's drawing a dog now. It's not easy to draw animals. The dog looks great. I love the panel of the dog jumping out the window. That's really cool, right? And kind of like skidding away and jumping onto all these different rides. And then there's actually a pretty cool panel when, you know, the one where they're riding in the car and the dog's running the other way. Right below that, there's the nice silhouette panel of Barbie and Ken running, and they're in silhouette with like pink behind them. I love those little devices they use. Like, that's a panelless panel, right? Or borderless panel, sorry. And again, just getting back to kind of classic cartooning, which I think was really cool. So I definitely enjoyed this one. Yeah, it reminded me, like, Josh, you mentioned Saturday morning cartoon, but it also reminds me of just like something you'd see in Archie, right? Or just any typical kind of like kids comic strip or whatever. So I thought this one was really fun.
I also really like that Barbie is front and center, even though Ken, she was in the other ones, but this one is featuring Ken, but he does feel more like a sidekick to her. He's kind of just following her along for the adventure. He's holding all of her stuff. He's scared to go on the amusement park ride. Like, I don't think they say it, but you definitely see him like peeking over the corner of the ride when they're on it, and he's got this like scared look on his face. Right.
I didn't even notice that. Yeah, good point.
Oh yeah, he's like crouched down in the car, and like Barbie's like whole, you know, blonde hair is all over the place, and of course Sparky's in the front, like
I love that.
Yeah, and he's got like a relieved look on his face when they get Sparky and the ride is over. So yeah, it's a fun way to end the book, I think.
Well, it's also cool because it's not quite the end, because there's also a letters page, right? But since this is the first issue, there's no letters yet. But I love how they actually give numbered questions to the readers, like, what is your name? How old are you? Do you read any other comics? Are you a Barbie collector? I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially because, you know, hopefully they were trying to get new readers to find out how to appeal to them and stuff like that. So this is definitely from a different time, where now the only way they know how to make more money is to just have variant covers and crossovers and crap like that, right? So yes, I'm very critical of current Marvel and DC. But anyway, I thought that was cool. Oh, you know what? I forgot to ask before we jump to the next issue. Dawn, did you have any Barbie comics when you were a kid?
No, I didn't even know Barbie comics existed. But I did have Barbie dolls.
Okay.
Not as many as other girls. My parents would always buy me like the off-brand ones, and then I'd get like the other parent, to give me what I wanted, depending on which one was in the good mood. So, and that's how I got Barbie and the Rockers and her
nice.
Band, so.
And one other thing I quickly wanted to mention is that I didn't realize until I spoke to you that there are also Barbie animated movies, is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's like 41 movies on YouTube right now. I don't know if that's all of them, but there's a lot.
And they're still making more.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go watch Skipper and the Babysitting Adventure on Netflix. Just a little plug.
Okay. If you say so. Yeah, so is that what you're working on right now, or is that already out?
I just finished up that movie, but I'm on a series now.
Interesting. Yeah. What do you charge for autographs? Dawn wants to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do it for free as long as you don't put that on eBay.
There you go. Yeah.
No, it's going to go in a case with my soon-to-be Barbie collection.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it's really quickly not really about Barbie. It was interesting to see some of the ads as well in this book, and the one that stuck out to me the most was the first one. There's like a full page ad for Super Mario Brothers body wash, or like a shampoo, and it's crazy that like Barbie is about to be probably one of the biggest movies of the year, and the other current biggest movie of the year is the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Good point.
Which is pretty crazy. Like they're, both of these things are still extremely relevant today, which is pretty cool.
So here's the thing: is like I said earlier, this comic we usually do 3 comics when we compare them in contrast. I decided to jump to the last issue of Barbie because it kind of caught my eye, because as I'm a superhero guy, and on the cover of the last issue of Barbie, she's dressed up as a superhero, and I've never seen anything like this before. And so it says helping friends everywhere, and she's dressed up in kind of a pinkish purplish superhero costume with like a what do you call that material? It's like see-through kind of a cape.
Sheer kind of
chiffon. Like chiffon. It looks like chiffon.
Okay. And it's actually a pretty cool costume. And it's like a sort of computer-generated 3D logo, Flying Hero Barbie.
Yeah.
And this is number 63. And just a minute here. It's from 1996, I think it is. And we should point out...
96.
Yeah, I looked through, and there's no actual acknowledgement that this is the last issue. So if you were reading this at the time, they give you no warning that there's no more issues to come, which is unfortunate. But I think if you look at history, this was actually the year Marvel went bankrupt. So they might have been in deep trouble at this point. Yeah, they might have just been like, just cut your losses and, get on to the next thing or whatever. So yeah, they were probably in trouble at the time. But anyway, we're going to jump into this one. Josh, do you want to tell us what happens in this one as well?
Sure.
Barbie and Catch the Courage.
Sure. Yeah. So there's 2 issues in 2 different stories in this one, but just the 2. This is very different from what we've been talking about so far. We have 3 main characters. We've got Barbie, Teresa, and Kira, who I've never heard of before. I've never heard of Kira. But all 3 of them are wearing these kind of sequency, very 90s superhero costumes as they're flying through town. And they're talking about how they're excited to go to this launching of a new space shuttle. And on their way there, they're going by so fast that it scares a squirrel who drops his acorn, and it hits a nest with a bird and some eggs in it, and an egg falls out, and Barbie's able to quickly swoop in and save the day and save this little chick who hatches as she kind of brings it back. Cute little moment. But they go on their way, and they end up making it over to the launch. Countdown goes off, and the shuttle takes off. Everything goes well, but then Barbie uses some sort of supervision to kind of like fly up into the sky, but also see very far that there's a meteor.
Her Barbie vision, yeah.
Sorry?
Her Barbie vision.
Yeah. And is that what it was called?
No.
Oh, okay. So there's this meteor that's actually plummeting towards Earth, and not only is it going to hit Earth, but it's going to collide with the spaceship. So our three heroes decide that they're going to take things into their own hands, and they're going to fly up and stop this thing. So they do this sort of strange power-up where they combine their powers for a quick moment. They like connect their capes, I guess.
Yes.
They say that they're doing it, but I'm not really sure exactly what it does. But they're able to maybe like fly faster or something. They end up splitting up. Kira goes and swoops in to redirect the space shuttle back to Earth. And Teresa and Barbie team up to kind of make this big force field, and Barbie's able to jump up off the force field and kick the asteroid out of the way, changing its trajectory away from Earth, and they save the day. As they we kind of cut back to Earth, and everybody's celebrating. The astronauts are there giving Barbie a thumbs up through the little window, and they're kind of flying through space with the space shuttle now. So it's very strange. I'm not sure if these are, again, this is the last issue, so I'm not sure if these are like established things that Barbie can do now, like this superhero version of Barbie can do.
Yeah. And I don't know either. Now, Don, do you know anything were there toys like this at the time?
1996 is a little later for me, so
okay.
I was a teenager by this. I don't know if there was a superhero Barbie, but what I did think of was in 1996 it would have been the 10-year anniversary of the Challenger explosion, which made me realize, that's probably why this is topical, right? Because people would have been talking, and like kids might have been scared, thinking about space shuttles blowing up, especially ones with school teachers on there. So having Barbie like save the day seems like it would have been a topic of conversation, worth. Also, I understand that Marvel is let a lot of superhero comics come out of there, but Barbie was not a superhero from what I understand. But this was when superhero movies started getting popular, I feel like, post, like, Batman Forever came out in, like, 95.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have The Mask in 94. And, like, this is, on the heels of, the original Batman movie with Michael Keaton and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was really popular with kids. I mean, I remember seeing the first Batman movie, like, at the drive-in. And, like, they sold Batman stuff everywhere. So I feel like seeing Barbie as a superhero would have been something that little girls would have been really interested in.
And also, with other comic book companies at the time, everybody was launching their own superhero universes. So it wasn't just Marvel and DC. Image Comics had superheroes. Dark Horse had what was it called? Worlds, I can't remember, Comics Greatest World or something, Ultra Comics or the Ultraverse, and so there was like a flood of superheroes, and so maybe they were capitalizing on that trend as well. But contrary to previous episodes of this show, I did do some research just now, and I found out there was a line of toys called Flying Hero Barbie, and they have all these characters. They have, it's really hard to read this, but all 3 of these characters had their own dolls. So Barbie, it's too small for me to read, sorry. But these characters were all actual toys. So
oh wow, yeah.
Which is kind of cool, yeah. So Flying Hero Barbie, Kira doll, yes, that's one of them. But anyway, yeah, I really like these designs. These are really cool superhero costumes. So, and obviously, I'm more of a superhero guy, so this story followed all the conventions of a superhero story. You have like a little crisis. The superheroes come in and save the day. And meanwhile, in this issue, there's a little bit of humor here and there, and some other stuff. So, and helping people out and teaming up to augment your powers and all that stuff. So I thought it was really cool. So I like this one. Yeah. So, and did you have anything else to say about this one, Don?
I'm just looking at the doll now. If you go to, there's one on Amazon, and you can read the back, and it says, one day Barbie discovered she had magical powers to fly and superhuman strength to protect and defend the world from harm. Together with her heroic friends and flying hero horse. Man, where's that horse?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like one of those crazy toy horses. I wish you guys could see this.
Oh no, I can see it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wonder if the doll came out first and then the comic was like promotional material for the release of this toy series.
Probably.
Because it says 1995, but this is from a private seller, so I don't know. If this is...
I think maybe it was, because looking actually at this issue, there's like an ad to subscribe to get these issues mailed to you. So you get 12 a year, and all of the issues are different. So it's like Barbie in different places are doing different things. Like one of them's a rodeo. One of them looks like she's in like a rainforest or something. Another one, she's in like Rome or something. Like she's on a boat. So I bet you that they partnered with Mattel to kind of choose all of the toys that were going to be coming up, and then they were kind of tasked to write stories that were connected with the different versions of Barbies that were going to be on shelves.
And hey, there's nothing wrong with that, because 2 of the first comics I read were G.I. Joe and Transformers,
right?
And they only existed to sell toys, and yet they were great, right? So whatever.
Yeah, and the issue.
Yeah, there's a
before this
Western
was
stamp in Barbie. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, and the issue before this one was Nutcracker, and then before that, like 61 was like fun fashion, like she's in like a gold studded.
So each issue is a different toy. Okay, cool. Interesting.
Yeah, they have like a Western stamp in Barbie from the 90s, the early 90s.
Yeah.
That would go with that like rodeo theme. I think there's several rodeo themed Barbies. There's one where like she was supposed to be a blinking Barbie. I don't remember what year this is from, but like I think that was the 70s, and like the mechanism for her blinking eye would get stuck, so she's like famously, if you buy one of these vintage toys, she's like famously has weird eyes that don't
amazing
because they don't close. But
it's so interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense that this is a promotional.
So I want to quickly point out before we get to the next story, the next ad we see in this comic is Disney Comic Hits. Now we should remind everyone, Disney did not own Marvel at this time, so this was a licensed tie-in, right? We see a really cool ad where Pocahontas is in a boat, and she's looking up and she sees like a totem pole with Ariel, the Beast, Aladdin, and what are they called?
Timon and Pumbaa.
Yeah, from Lion King. So this is a really cool little vintage ad here. I like it. 1995. Anyway, just cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there were this many comics, like running comics for all of these things. Because I know that at the time there were actually spin-off TV shows for a lot of these movies. Like there was a Timon and Pumbaa show. There was an Aladdin one. Definitely a Little Mermaid show. So that's pretty interesting to see that kind of had this like crossover with the comics at the same time.
Right. Very cool. And so now we're going to jump into the next story, Barbie in Raging River.
Okay, so our three superheroes, again, are hanging out. They're in the middle of a forest in this like campground area. They're having a picnic. We cut over to this family. And similar to the theme park issue that we recently talked about, this family is kind of exploring these paths in this campground, and their dog runs off. Their dad, I believe it is, or no, the young son says to this girl that go with dad, I'll chase after the dog. Just make sure you stick with him so you don't get lost. She decides she's going to kind of take things into her own hands. She really wants to save their dog, Rusty. So she runs after him, and she ends up finding him in a river. But the dog is a little nervous and stuck, I guess, in the middle of the water. So she comes up with a plan to use a life raft to go out and save the dog. But the waters are a little choppy, so she ties a rope to it. She ties the other end to a tree, and she goes off. She's able to pick Rusty up and bring him into the boat. But unfortunately, the waters are so rough that the boat is pulling so hard, and the boat is pulling so hard that the rope snaps. Luckily, our three superheroes are walking by while all of this is happening. So they fly over to save her. And to raise the stakes even more, as they're floating down this river, a boulder breaks off the side of a cliff and starts rolling down, and it hits this tree, this gigantic, like big oak tree. And the oak tree snaps and is like falling into the river just as the boat is passing by. But again, our heroes are able to stop this tree from hitting them. And Barbie, our main hero, kind of swoops in and grabs the boat as it's falling, and is able to save the dog and the boat. But the little girl Jenny keeps falling. So Barbie again kind of like flies down and swoops and picks her up and brings them all to shore. She's reunited with her family, and they kind of thank the gang as Barbie flies off into the distance to kind of tell their dad where their missing kids are, who, while he's like talking to a park ranger, and Rusty the dog jumps up and gives Barbie a big kiss on the face to kind of end the story.
I love this story. I mean, it kind of reminds me, well, I mean, it makes me realize why I don't like so many current superhero comics, where they try to be so serious and so pretentious and so violent. And this is just a fun little story where some characters get into some danger and then the superheroes come and save them. And I love it. And I should also point out that the more I think about it, the more I like the design of their costumes. And it kind of reminds me that with very rare exception, all the female superheroes at Marvel and DC were designed by men. And obviously there were some that were well done, like Spider-Woman or maybe Ms. Marvel, but most of them didn't look this good, I don't think. So anyway, I just want to say I appreciate their costume designs. They're great. Dawn, what did you think of this one?
I just realized of the three, this is the only one where all of the stories, well, there's only two stories in this, are with the same type of Barbie or the same character of Barbie, or the other. I'm not sure where in the series that switched over, because we started with a bunch of short stories where Barbie is somebody else. Like, she's still Barbie, but she's like Barbie as, you know, a fashion person, or Barbie as a shopper, or Barbie as a, you know, a flight attendant or stuff like that. Where this one, it's like the same three characters, which I like, because it's almost like you get to see like multiple adventures with them.
Sure.
And then you know what, when you talk about her costumes, it kind of reminds me, and I have not read the boys comics, but like Starlight in the show,
yes,
her costume is like that. And they actually like make a point to, when they like try to switch her costume over to being hypersexualized, and how she like doesn't like that at all. So this is like early Starlight costumes, which are great. They have sort of like oh, I don't know, almost like a glam rock sort of look.
Like a Swedish ABBA pop band kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Not as much with the hair, though. That is like the one thing that's not as cool. I like the other one with the hair better, but her hair's still pretty good in here.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that this superhero costume still feels like new and fresh and like in style. Like it almost seems timeless. This
good point.
This outfit, like if Barbie were to show up in Marvel Comics today and she showed up in this outfit, it wouldn't feel strange.
That's actually a really good point. Although someone, I don't want to say who, a nameless film director might try to give her that basketball texture and ruin all the colors and amputate her and shoot her. And anyway, we don't talk about that. But yeah, this is good stuff. I like this. I really like this. And it's actually just a fluke that she happens to be a superhero in this issue, because as we were talking, I was flipping back, and like you said, every issue is a different thing. Like number 50 is Walt Disney World Resort Holiday. Number 51 is let's see here, Time for Fun. She has a completely different outfit on. So you're right, they're probably advertising a completely different toy every issue, which is smart, right? Why not? So, but yeah, just by sheer coincidence, the last issue happens to be her in her superhero getup, which I appreciated. So I thought this was really cool and really eye-opening. I really enjoyed this. And it makes me long for a more innocent time in the 1990s, Cool stuff. And then before we wrap up, there's also Barbie in exquisite exclamations. I don't even know. I don't think I read this, but what is she doing here? No matter what the occasion, Barbie will always take your breath away in these extremely elegant dresses sent to us by you, the Barbie readers. Oh, so these were submitted by readers. So we have one here by Holly Kinzierski, age 6, from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Ooh.
Siobhan Conrad from Lubbock, Texas, and Gabriella Cobb from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So that's pretty cool. Right? Again, reader interaction, right? Like that's a cool little thing. And again, you read the letters page, there's no mention of this being the last issue, which is unfortunate, right? So it probably came as a surprise to everyone. Now also, we were talking about ads earlier. If you flip to I believe this is the inside back cover, it's an advertisement for the Mask cartoon, right? Which would have been a spin-off of the Jim Carrey movie. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I really like the ad earlier on. It's a Spider-Man cereal ad. And it's just like a kind of like almost all white page, and the cereal box is like stuck on the side, like on the left hand side.
Yes, good point.
With webs. It's great.
Right. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
So there you go. There's 3 Barbie comics. There's also there was also a Barbie and Friends comic, but I thought it'd be more interesting to review number 63, so that's why I picked this one. So I guess go ahead. With
Barbie, the movie coming out, it kind of seemed, I don't know, I mean, obviously we don't know where they're going with the film exactly, but it kind of seems like the premise is that Barbie's kind of a god, or she's godlike in her world. So ending with a superhero style Barbie feels appropriate.
Yeah, it really does.
Absolutely. And sorry, I was wrong. It was called Barbie Fashion, but Barbie Fashion lasted until number 53, and that came out in 1990. 1 second here. 5. So I guess this one didn't last quite as long. It was like the spin-off. But obviously a very successful little mini franchise there from Marvel. So it's kind of interesting. So we will now have to wait in anticipation for the movie to come out. This podcast will actually probably launch a week or 2 before the movie comes out. So
nice.
If you are interested in joining us, Don, you're welcome to join us for the movie review. If you think you can see it you'll be seeing it opening weekend, right? So.
Yeah, I'm seeing it Friday. I'm not seeing it Thursday night because I'll be too exhausted from actually being at Comic-Con.
Sure, right.
It's like insane. But we're going, all day on Friday. So if you guys are doing it after that point, I'll definitely join you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. It was great talking to you again. After all this time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been like 8 years or whatever it's been. So yeah, we're definitely looking forward to having you on again. And again, this has been Comic Book Syndicate. We'll be reviewing all the superhero and comic book movies for the rest of the year. We also do Slam, reviewing DC superheroes from the Golden Age to the present. And we review, and what's the other one? Teen Crusaders, reviewing every single superhero adaptation ever made. And Josh, you can take it from here. Yeah,
thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. You can find all of our stuff on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. You can also find our stuff on YouTube and Facebook. Please leave us a review, a comment, post on our videos. Let us know what you guys think about the things we're talking about, the movies, the comics, the toys. Let us know what you guys think, and let's keep that comics conversation going.
That's right. So until the next time, see you later.